Welcome to the Calm Analytics channel. This is Boris Zinghausen with you. Today is August 25th, and we have a lot of interesting news. In this episode, Lavrov stated that, as it turns out, Russia no longer needs other people's territories. So what does it need then? The armed forces of Ukraine have begun liberating villages in the Donetsk region. Meanwhile, in Russia, a hunt is beginning for people who read prayers, how Orban became a hostage, and how Azerbaijan simply infuriated Russian propagandists. The Flamingo missiles and the Yamal Cross, where Koshchei's death is hidden and Putin's weak spot. And also about how Zelensky might take the Nobel Peace Prize away from Donald Trump. All this and more in today's episode. If this is your first time on this channel, subscribe so you don't miss the next episodes. So to begin with, at the start of this episode, I want to show you a video so that every time I say there should be a giant moat on the border with Russia, everything should be mined, and there should be a towering wall so that people don't write in the comments, but why? Why? How? I want to show you this video. Please take a look.
If we don't resolve the issue with Ukraine once and for all, we'll end up in the same situation again in another 100 years. I have a lot of Ukrainian friends who are fighting on our side. I've buried many of them. I also studied with Ukrainians. Ukraine should not exist, but that doesn't mean we should destroy Ukrainians. It's a logical part of us. I have a friend who's English, and he says, listen, I can't tell a Russian from a Ukrainian. How are they different? I say, well, they're not different at all. Ukrainians are the same as Russians, just Nazis.
Yeah, just Nazis. Well, there he is, the very one who's broadcasting and sitting there. By the way, take a look at those suspender straps. They're also loaded with symbols. So who's the real Nazi here? Well, it's all clear here. This is a textbook example of an opportunist. I think it's a kind of mimicry. So if tomorrow he has to say, I don't know, communists, Buddhists, or Ukro-Nazis, whatever the Kremlin tells him to say, he'll say it and justify it. He doesn't actually believe any of it. He's rotten to the core, a completely disgusting opportunist. By the way, who is this? Ivan Chicherin? I can't even tell them apart anymore from that Chicherina. They've been so affected by Putin's metastases that this inner ugliness is just spilling out. And it's quite funny that he's calling for genocide while denying the existence of a country with millions of people. So, who's the real Nazi here, huh? What do you think? And this is the elite of Putin's propaganda. Let me remind you, he's also a priest of the Russian Orthodox Church. And he's decided to solve the Ukrainian question. See how bold he is, what a hero. Well, I think that in order for the Russian Federation not to solve the Ukrainian question, and then the Armenian, Azerbaijani or Georgian questions, everyone will have to finally and once and for all solve the Russian imperial question. Let me emphasize once again, this does not apply to those who support Ukraine and who are fighting for Ukraine. There are such people. I'm talking now about the RDK, about the Legion, which, by the way, we have also helped. Well, the GUR and the Third Corps are also reclaiming territories. By the way, this is a significant piece of news. Here, the size of the territory being reclaimed isn't what's important. What's important is that this is Donetsk region. That is, Novomykhailivka is once again under the control of Ukrainian forces. A successful offensive operation was carried out by the Department of Active Operations of the GUR of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, in particular by the Artan unit and the 2nd Assault Battalion of the 3rd Assault Brigade. The occupiers' units were driven out, and a significant number of bad, wicked, I was going to say people, but no, they're not people. So basically, this biomass was laid to rest in the ground. Honor and praise to our warriors. And this is a signal. Why is this news important? Because this is Donetsk region, meaning Trump, to whom the Russians are saying, let them leave Donbas, we'll conquer this Donbas with or without them. Here you go. They're starting to recapture settlements in Donetsk region. This is a psychological effect. And yes, it's also a signal to the US that if Ukraine is given the necessary amount of weapons, it's quite possible to liberate the entire Donbas. And I deliberately didn't comment on this news for 3 days. You know, when a big oil refinery is burning, I wait 4 days before saying that finally the canisters have been burning for the 4th day. Take a good long look at this truly remarkable video. So, the largest oil refinery in southern Russia has been burning for the 4th day. the Novoshakhtinsk oil refinery, the only one still operating in the Rostov region, and of course, the main supplier of petroleum products in southern Russia. So that's how it's burning. An incredible number of firefighters and rescuers have been brought in there. I don't think that's going to help much. It's going to burn out thoroughly there. And look, Lavrov with new revelations from Lavrov. Russia recognizes Zelensky as the de facto head of the regime and is ready to meet with him in that capacity. But according to the constitution, he is illegitimate, says Lavrov. They're playing the same old tune again. Donald Trump, hello, wake up. So, while Donald Trump is making incredible efforts to get Putin to meet with Zelensky, Lavrov, the mouthpiece of Putin or one of his mouthpieces, Lavrov says, well, he's not legitimate. We can meet with him, but we don't consider him legitimate. And look at what else he said. By the way, this is a very, very important point. The Russians are not insisting on Russian having official state status in Ukraine, but the Kremlin is demanding laws that lift restrictions on the use of the Russian language, as well as laws that infringe upon the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. I told you, the FSB branch, these ROC guys, it's much more important for them to get them back in here than any other demands. They know that through this channel of theirs, after some time, they'll rebuild that whole network of pro-Russian influence. I'm telling you, when was it? In the first days after the full-scale invasion. Well, I've told this story once before. My wife and I went to a store in Kiev to buy some groceries. On the way back, I see, well, there's a person lying or sitting there, I don't know. You could tell the person was homeless. And I asked him, there was hardly anyone around, very few people. It was all so unclear what was happening. Bombings, missiles, Russian troops moving toward Kiev. And I asked him, maybe you want something to eat, or maybe something to drink, some groceries. He said something in response. I said, all right. I went and bought him some canned food, some water, bread, just a basic set of things. And I gave it to him. I said, here you go, have something to eat. To which he says to me, and when will this fratricidal war end? I say, what do you mean fratricidal? It's not, well, it wasn't brothers who came to us across the border. He says, yeah, but our priest told us that this is a fratricidal war, and soon it will all be over, and so on. Wow, I say, what priest? Then in which church then? Well, he realized he'd said too much. So what am I getting at? That is, it's obvious he was told this in Kiev. And dozens of criminal cases have been opened against clergy for collaboration and for eagerly waiting and spreading literature. And they were saying, whoa, wait, soon we'll all be saved here. So that's how it is. It's important for the Russians to shove their branch of the Russian Orthodox Church back in here. They understand how powerful a force it is. And as for whether Zelensky is legitimate or not, I've already talked about that 100 times. Maybe at least someone, by the way, maybe one of our deputies will make an official inquiry saying that Putin's replicas don't look like the very same Putin who came to power at the end of the 90s, or rather, was brought to power. That's why there is every reason to believe that some very bad copy escaped from this pen for Putin's, killed off all the others, real and fake alike. Let them conduct a genetic examination. Because whatever this crooked, who knows who Frankenstein they've cobbled together signs will be absolutely illegitimate. Because we don't know if that's the real Putin or not. Visually, it's not him. Come on, prove it to the whole world. I mean, with Trump, it's clear he's always Trump. There's just no way to make a second one like him as far as I can tell. But this one, well, let's see. Whoever their collective mind is, maybe it's Patrushev, Bastrikin, a crowd of other replicants. Go ahead, confirm that this isn't a fake Putin. So I think this role, or rather, this request, would actually suit Alexei Goncharenko very well. Seriously, he really knows how to push for things like this. At the very least, he could raise this question. Maybe some people will find it strange. No, let the Russians decide for themselves whether that's really him sitting there or not. And also, Lavrov said in an interview with NBC that we're not interested in territories. We have the largest territory on Earth, Lavrov says. Unlike those who raise the issue of invasion and seizing more and more land, what concerns us is the fate of the people living on those lands, Lavrov tells us. Seriously? Is that why in 12 years you couldn't even get running water to Donbas? Because you're supposedly so concerned about the fate of the people living on those lands. But we'll get to that a bit later. That's exactly why you don't need any more land, and yet you're asking to be given the ones you haven't occupied yet. I mean, you get it, right? It's absolutely like news from the racetrack, as they say. Lavrov stated that Ukraine has the right to exist only if it fulfills Putin's conditions. Honestly, it looks like he forgot to take his meds this time. In the same interview with NBC, he said that Ukraine can only exist under one condition, if it gives up the territories annexed by Russia. Earlier, Reuters, citing sources, reported that this exact demand was what Putin put forward as a condition for ending the war. We knew that? Give up the 4 regions and Crimea, just give them up. This empty-eyed scum has latched on with its crooked little fingers. So, well, it's clear what's going on here. By the way, do you know what else Lavrov said? That Ukraine has the right to exist if it lets go of this and that, and the people whom they, that is we, hereditary Ukro-Saxons, call terrorists. Individuals who, in several referendums in Novorossiya, in Donbas, in Crimea, decided that they belong to Russian culture. So yes, we let them go. Go ahead and float away, or rather, where to? There's no water there. Run. Gallop over there, somewhere into the Russian prairies. According to Lavrov, the Ukrainian authorities have set themselves the goal of destroying everything Russian. We're not just ready to let them go. We're even ready to give them a push toward the Russian Federation. Take them. Take all those who shouted, "Putin, come. Putin, send in the troops." I think that in Donbas, where they only get water once every 3 days now, people are seriously wondering, why did we call for him? Just look at what's happening there now. The internet is full of videos. Someone steals a barrel from a yard where water is delivered, or something else like that. People have been turned into savages. How did it come to this? Those who called for Putin, they were like that from the start. By the way, friends, let me remind you that the front is really being held now by some incredible courage. They're already taking back our settlements in the Donetsk region. Just imagine, Russia is being helped by everyone. China, Iran, North Korea. And yet, despite all that, their settlements are still being retaken. It's just that Ukraine and Ukrainians are showing something incredible. That's why I want to remind you that we have a very important fundraiser for the 1st Medical Battalion, for our medics who are saving lives there on the front lines. They are simply guardian angels. And we are raising funds for the mall. It's a drone, a ground-based evacuation vehicle with an armored capsule. A wounded defender can be placed inside, and it transports them through swamps, mud, along roads, and over obstacles, taking them to a place where they can receive medical help. It saves the life of the wounded, saves the lives of our medics, and saves the lives of the evacuation team, who would otherwise have to go after him and could come under fire. It's a very necessary thing and a direct investment in saving lives. That's why I'm asking you to support this fundraiser for our medics for the mall. The link to the fundraiser is in the description of this video and also in the comments. There is Mono, there is Private, and there is PayPal for those who want to help from abroad. I always want to say a huge thank you from myself. And from our soldiers as well. And here's what this mall looks like. Take a look.
Evacuating the wounded is one of the toughest challenges on the front today. Together with Boris Tizenhausen's channel, the 1st Medical Battalion is raising funds for ground-based unmanned systems for evacuating the wounded, called MAL. Your 100 hryvnias can save a life. Thank you all for your support.
Let's help our medics. Let's support them. If you're watching this video not on my channel, which is possible, there will be a QR code right here, and you can use it to go directly to the fundraiser. You are awesome. We're doing something really important together. So, the daily life of degenerates. Basically, this is all about how Lavrov wants to save someone, whoever is still alive. The way I imagine it, it's like, is anyone alive? We're here to save you. Not everyone has been dragged to the front yet. Not everyone has been deprived of water. Not everyone has been driven into basements. Come on, we're here to save you. Saviors? Look. I can only imagine what it must be like now for native Donetsk residents who left when the Russian world arrived to see what the so-called liberators have turned their city into. So, the founder and ideologist of the DPR, with the telling surname Andrei Pergin, said that 70% of native Donetsk residents have left, and in their place, as he puts it, the liberators have arrived. And the city itself has degraded and turned into a dump. But Putin, of course, Putin is the brown fairy. He has this kind of wand. He strikes a beautiful city and that's it. Ruins, swamp, decay, sludge, bubbling degenerates. That's Putin, that's his skill. Garbage isn't being collected, it stinks everywhere, there's no water. Well, basically, yeah. And suddenly he saw the light. I don't know how he's still walking around alive to this day. Recently, Pushilin was summoned to Putin. I showed that video where he was mumbling that he would fix everything, already starting to clear riverbeds in the 12th year. But in reality, Pushilin said that it was all because no one had done any repairs since the 90s. Seriously? After that episode, people started writing in the comments, why is he lying? Well, that's Pushilin for you. He can't do it any other way. Just unbelievable ghouls. And I remembered that's exactly how the mafia used to act, right? They didn't care about people at all. All they cared about was making money. So, in southern Italy, the local mafia would bury industrial waste, chemical and machine building industry waste, and destroy water supplies. And then they would sell water in bottles. And guess what this Persian says? Turns out Pushilin owns water bottling plants. So why would he want to supply water to Donetsk? Are you kidding? He would never kill the goose that lays the golden eggs. Yeah, that is truly the very essence of what is known as the so-called Russian world. Even if you think it's impossible to destroy a beautiful, good, comfortable city so quickly, believe me, the Russian world will manage. And now, on to some good news. Canada is allocating over $1 billion Canadian from the promised $2 billion military aid package. And this package, $1 billion Canadian, is about 700 to 720 million US dollars. So this package will already be delivered to Ukraine in September. It includes drones, ammunition, and armored vehicles. Thank you. Thank you to Canada, thank you to the people of Canada, the citizens of Canada, and everyone who is helping Ukraine. Believe me, destroying the monster will prevent more than one war started by the Dictators Club in the future. An enormous gratitude to those who are helping Ukraine. By the way, Zelensky trolled Orban a little bit. The attack on the Druzhba oil pipeline, on which Hungary, and more specifically Orban, heavily depends, and which ensures stable gasoline prices, especially with Orban's elections coming up in the spring, really angered both Orban and his government. And Szijjártó, the Hungarian foreign minister, called on Zelensky not to make threats, not to threaten Hungary because of Zelensky's remarks about the Druzhba oil pipeline. In response, the Ukrainian Deputy Foreign Minister Sybiha, by the way, he responds very competently, professionally and quickly, as I've already pointed out. Well done, Sybiha. In response, he wrote that no one should tell the president of Ukraine what to do and when. He is the president of Ukraine, not Hungary. So go tell your own oil slug what to do over there. So, what exactly triggered all this? And the reason was that Zelensky made a statement and said the following. We have always supported friendship between Ukraine and Hungary, and now the existence of that friendship depends on Hungary's position, Zelensky said. So, in other words, he hinted here that the existence, of the Druzhba oil pipeline depends on how Hungary is stalling Ukraine's movement toward the European Union. We could have unfrozen the clusters long ago, and we well on our way to European integration. We're moving in that direction, but we could have concrete progress, accomplishing tasks, but Orban won't allow it. So the existence of friendship, the oil pipeline, well, you can draw your own conclusions, depends on whether Orban comes to his senses. I mean, you really have to be such a scumbag for that. You know, I'm actually a pretty restrained person, but honestly, you really have to be such a schmuck. Let's use an Odessa word for it. He's guzzling Russian oil with both hands, guzzling Russian gas, sitting in the European Union and getting subsidies. Let me remind you, for every dollar, for every euro, Hungary gets two. So for every investment, they get double back. And on top of that, he's grumbling that Ukraine, which is now the outpost defending all of Europe, is supposedly doing something wrong. Well, that's fine. We'll show them. And by the way, Szijjártó, who says, don't threaten us, you can't intimidate us, and so on. And I thought, let me check the size of the Hungarian armed forces. Well, let's see. Let's take a look together. The entire Hungarian armed forces number about 34,000 people. Moreover, Hungary's Minister of Defense, Ferenc Dohács, announced a reduction in the armed forces from 30,000 to 22,000. So, 22,000 and about, well, what is that? Who exactly is supposed to be threatening whom here? No need for that. Hungary has 30, no joke, 30 T-72 main battle tanks in service. Good evening, as they say. Who is threatening whom? Wait, just wait a second. I'm not making any threats right now. I'm just saying that Ukraine will remember everything after this war. It's true. Especially those truly obstructive pterodactyls of the world, those who actively blocked essential aid to Ukraine and who vehemently opposed and blocked anti-Russian sanctions. So, by the way, my dear friends, there is something else of significant importance that I truly want to tell you. In Russia, if you think there's some kind of rock bottom that you can break through and reach the ground, no, there will always be a new bottom, a new one, and another new one. The Russian Ministry of Internal Affairs, under the pretext of fighting terrorism, has called on Russians to report people who are dressed out of season and have tightly pressed lips. This was reported by TASS. According to the materials I reviewed, TASS says that special attention should be paid to people wearing inappropriate clothing, for example, warm coats or jackets in the summer, since terrorists most often hide bombs under such clothing. Also on the list of suspicious items are large bags and suitcases. Make everyone in the airport lie face down on the floor. And according to the Ministry of Internal Affairs, those who behave nervously or look frightened should also raise suspicion. But really, is it even possible to behave any other way in Russia right now? And special attention is paid to facial expressions. A criminal preparing for a terrorist attack usually looks extremely focused. Lips are tightly pressed together or moving slowly, as if reciting a prayer. Well, guys, have you had enough? Is this what you wanted? Long clothing. Anything could be hidden underneath it. You could even stash something in that klobuk too. Lips pressed together, reciting a prayer. Good evening, everyone's here. By the way, friends, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Calm analysis. It helps. Calm analysis helps improve your mental health. That's not a joke. Seriously, people come up to me on the street and say thank you. And I sincerely thank each and every one of them for watching. So, if you truly want your precious little cuckoo ensemble, as they often say, not to embark on an unexpected or unplanned tour, then please do subscribe for insightful and calm analysis. And so Putin decided to take revenge on Azerbaijan. He bombed SOCAR facilities on Ukrainian territory. And Aliyev didn't take long to think about it. Then what did Aliyev do? He launched the production of 122 and 152 mm shells. Russian social media channels are absolutely furious about it. With that kind of energy, they could launch themselves into space right now. Basically, Russian channels are reporting that installation and setup of industrial presses, supplied by a Turkish company, is already underway. Ha! The 58th Yatagan in Putin's back. At the same time, the management of several Azerbaijani companies is negotiating with a Bulgarian company to acquire modern installations. In short, there's a terrible outcry going on. Azerbaijan is now a legitimate target. It's no longer friendly. They're going to make shells for Ukraine. Well, let me remind you, Azerbaijan has switched to NATO standards, so I honestly don't know who the 122mm and 152mm calibers are for anymore. And that's not the only thing they're worried about in the Kremlin. And if the Flamingo actually takes off, and I think it will, I mean the Flamingo missiles, then in principle, it would be possible to take down all the energy and heating in Moscow with a single salvo. As for what the Russians wanted to do to Kyiv and all of Ukraine, honestly, no one cares what they have to say about it. If this is a Ukrainian missile, if it has a range of 3,000 kilometers, and if its warhead weighs a ton, then Muscovites are guaranteed to be left without heat and without electricity. That's why, back in August, it was announced that one missile per day would be produced, but by October, 200 to 210 missiles per month, that is, up to 7 missiles a day. So if all this is true, and I'm a moderate realist, if all this is true, then yes, then it's worth reading up on what the Yamal Cross is. Because Flamingo and the Yamal Cross together are just an explosive combination. This is just a piece of news with a spark, because if Flamingo strikes the Yamal Cross, which, let me remind you, is 2,750, 2,800 kilometers from the border with Ukraine, then Putin's own associates will strangle him in his office and beat all those replicants with snuff boxes, the ones who will be running around in the underground tunnels afterwards. I can absolutely guarantee you that, and the suffering of ordinary people will end once and for all. So, the Yamal Cross is a point on the map of main gas pipelines coming from Yamal, where 17 major pipelines intersect at once. Just imagine that. It's on the bank of the Pravaya Keta River, not far from the village of Pangada. So basically right here with just 2 or 3 precisely targeted missiles, you could cut off up to 85% of natural gas production in a single strike. Just imagine that. And as a result, electricity, as a result, heat, raw materials for explosives production, and so on and so forth. The thing is, in order to end the war, Russia must be left without explosives. That is, explosives require toluene, sulfuric, and nitric acid. What else is needed in large quantities? Well, in general, there's a lot of all that. And all these 11 refineries that produce toluene, of course, get it from oil. And all 10 plants that produce nitric acid get it from ammonia, which in turn comes from natural gas. So if you deprive them of oil and gas, it will be very difficult for Russia to continue the war. That's why the Yamal Cross, I think, is one of the... Although the 2 ports, Ust-Luga, which was recently hit, and Novorossiysk are also important. So, as people rightly write to me in the comments, let all the flamingos arrive soon exactly where they're needed. By the way, you know what I just thought? Trump could actually lose the Nobel Peace Prize if Zelensky meets with old man Kabayev. Because just imagine for just a moment, for a second. So Zelensky is sitting there, Putin is sitting there, maybe some interpreters too. And Zelensky just jumps on that Botox jellyfish and with 2 strong moves just starts to strangle it. So what would happen then? What consequences would that have for the world? The consequences would be very simple. The Nobel Peace Prize would immediately go to Zelensky. So I think at the very least, people in the Kremlin are thinking about this right now, that Kablukan could simply get taken out in the meeting room. So who are they going to send there? They'll pull him out of there. They'll say, we knew it. Here he is, sitting right here with us. And another one is holed up over there in the tower. That's how it is. So excuse my French, but you have to take out everyone at once. And you friends, take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Subscribe to this channel. Let's support the fundraiser for our medics. They are simply incredible. Wishing us all a peaceful day. And of course, glory to Ukraine.